It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1% to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-American Network. It is the day we look forward to every single week. We're back at it. We're ready to go. We're making the week happen, being productive, doing something like that. It's a Monday. Welcome. Not just a Monday. I think today's a special day. Today is a pre-Halloween Eve, and yeah, I gotta say, I'm starting to enjoy Halloween more and more every year. Why? Because it's ways to violate people's safe spaces. It's really a great holiday, and it's better than you anticipate. I mean, usually, as the kid, you look forward to actually dressing up in the Halloween costume. By the time that you're old and you're an adult, to some degree, you have your kids. It's fun just to watch them do their thing, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, some of the fun stuff we did over the weekend, but it's really even more entertaining just for the fact that now every single costume that's a potential costume for either you to wear, your college kid to wear because they always want to be, kind of skimpy and sexy or something, or even for the kids, it doesn't matter. No matter what you dress up as is either racist or bigoted or insensitive in some way, shape, or form. And the people that throw a fit about it and complain about it, they're the ones we like to make fun of anyway. So, you know what? It's a Halloween Eve. Let's make it a good one. It's also a Monday. Let's go ahead and do this as well. Getting pumped up for the week. Getting the tone, setting the tone for the entire day, for the entire week. Why? Because that's just what we do. It's a Monday morning, and let's celebrate accordingly here on The Voice of Reason.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
It helps if I'm actually able to talk a little bit too this morning, but welcome into it. Good morning. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you're always welcome to do so. Shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice Reason page, on the KQAM page, on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason, which I do have to say, I was on Twitter over the weekend, which I don't usually get on there very much at all, especially on the weekend when I'm actually enjoying the family. But I got on and, of course, had to throw a wrench in the system. Bernie Sanders made a stupid comment. I had to comment back, and then everybody else likes to reply back and call me a hateful, horrible human being. And the reason I had to comment was because Bernie Sanders tried to bring up the idea of freedom. And yes, he's all about freedom apparently now, freedom and liberty, and had to make the comment about how we need to be, how can you possibly be free when you're working 2 or 3 jobs and you can't pay for your health insurance or you can't pay for living, you don't actually have any living wages. And my response is, well, then stop taxing us to death, idiot. It's very simple. If you don't want us to work 2 or 3 jobs in order to provide food on our table, then stop trying to tax us a ridiculous amount to be able to pay for free things that we don't actually benefit from because they're actually a really terrible, horrible program. Then we might actually be free. And then, of course, I had these people saying, oh, that's just a stale Republican talking point. And you're just really short-sighted and you can't think about the answer. So I, of course, had to comment back and be like, okay, instead of the attacks of my ideas or me, explain to me how more taxes for more free government goodies doesn't increase the size of government, doesn't increase the size of government spending, which doesn't increase the more regulations and limits on your freedom. Tell me how that's more freedom by the government growing. And of course, they didn't respond. And finally, people are starting to wake up and actually respond and like to me. So maybe maybe we actually can bring some common sense back into the discussion. So that was one little banter that I had over the weekend. I thought it was kind of entertaining, which, again, you don't put a whole lot of attention into it because they're just drones on there. And, again, every progressive, every liberal can sum up their entire argument on a 160-character tweet, which is why I find Twitter very comical. I don't get on there very often just for that fact because it's so easy to sink down into the sewers in order for you to make personal attacks on one another because, well, they have nothing else to contribute. So that's one thing. I do have to say, though, it's Halloween time. It's starting to cool off. It was very cold over the weekend, at least, for the morning times. And we went out we have our little 3-year-old daughter and went out to try and have some fun. And we went to a pumpkin patch and got to walk around. And I got to say, it was entertaining here in the Wichita area, at least, where they had the big one. We went into the corn maze, and we got to have her ride some little rides and do the slide and have some fun. They did have the characters out there because her favorite of all time, for whatever reason, is, of course, Frozen, which is such a big thing right now. But they're the characters of Frozen, the two queens and princess, whatever, Anna and Elsa, they were there, and my 3-year-old was absolutely starstruck. Now, I mean starstruck. When she was, about a year or two ago, when she was really, really little, we went to the circus, and there they had Elmo, and she got to take a picture with Elmo, which Elmo was by far her favorite character in the whole entire world. And the fact that she got to give Elmo a high five at that time, that was a done deal. That was that was all. Now, with her being able to go up and give Anna and Elsa a hug and get a picture with them, you would not believe how starstruck that she was. We got there, and they were reading a story to all the children, and there was Spider-Man there as well, which she loves Spider-Man too. But, of course, Anna and Elsa, boy, I tell you what, that's the top of the crop there. And we got there, and they're reading the story for the children, and then they get done, and they were doing face painting and taking pictures. And I said, do you want to go and give Anna and Elsa a hug? And her eyes got so big, I thought they were going to pop out of her head. She ran right up, which I feel bad because I think she cut off another kid that was about to do the same thing, ran up and bear hugged the gal that was playing Elsa. And just bam, right there. And then she stood there, and we took the pictures with both of them, and she's just not knowing where to look or what to do. She's looking up at one, looking up at the other. She's looking at us, trying to figure out what to do here. She just couldn't believe that this is actually happening. Then she, of course, gets her face painted by one of them. And again, just starstruck, the entire staring at them, not moving, not talking, and then, of course, gets the picture of Spider-Man, too. So right there, that is it. That was worth the whole $20 to be able to get in the door in the first place, because that just was all. Then, of course, we went around, did some trick-or-treating. They had some of the schools that were there, the churches that have been in the area, and I do have to say, I got to give credit to the church, and I don't even remember what church it was, but I got to give credit to the church that did the trick-or-treating. Because there are some churches, if you're more traditional in that sense, I understand I'm not attacking this by any way, shape, or form, but there are some churches that don't like to do the Halloween thing because they don't think it's very Christian-like. And they don't like the dressing up, the costumes, they don't like the whole theme of Halloween, and they just don't do it, which I totally understand if you don't, but this one was very open to it. And not only that, but even the members of the church that were hosting it were dressed up. And they were dressed up as, one of them was a witch. Another one was a vampire that had the fangs, then had the red paint coming down the mouth like the blood. They actually enjoyed it because it was about the kids and it was about the entertainment of the children. And I really had to respect that because I don't want to go anti-Christian. A lot of people take Halloween as an anti-Christian thing, which I guess you could perceive it in that sense. But I really enjoyed it just for the sense that it was just fun and it was lighthearted. And I don't want to go down too much of the road of everything unless you're sitting and just reading the Bible and praying, and anything else is demonic and against, Christ and against God or whatever, if that's what you believe. And I'm not one of those. I believe that, you're working, to me, it's about the personal God, and it's about, the higher power, and that you would just work to make yourself a better person between you and it, and everybody else, it doesn't really matter. I'm not really one into the collective church to me, and I got to be honest, I haven't gone to church in a long time, just for that fact, really, that I'm kind of more of a personal kind of thing, which if you're Christian, if you're religious, if you believe in it, don't believe in it, that's your prerogative, and I don't really care. That's you and your thing. But I have to give credit for that fact just because of the atmosphere of fun that there was at that church and where we went for that trick-or-treating. So it was a great weekend all around. This weekend, tomorrow, obviously, is Halloween coming up tomorrow. Later in the show, we are going to be playing again, Halloween's becoming more and more of my favorite holiday again, just because of the fact that we get to violate people's personal bubbles and their trigger warnings. And I find that entertaining in myself, just being the conservative talk show host that I am. I love being able to violate people's offensive microaggressions that they feel are harmful to society because they're just dumb. Because they just overthink these things way too much. So later in the show, we played it last year, but it's about a 4-minute audio bit, and it's about the racist and closed-minded bigotedness Halloween costumes that you can dress up as, and the warnings for you to dress up as those. Talking about the kids in the costumes, I don't know if you've seen the cartoon Moana, the Hawaiian cartoon, and The Rock is Maui. He's the big demigod, and the gal that tries to go save it because everything's dying off in the islands and everything. And I think it's a really great movie. I actually really enjoy that one. But apparently dressing up as Moana is the Hawaiian dark-skinned, dark-haired girl. If you're a white girl, then you are racist because you shouldn't be culturally appropriating that individual or those people because they are dark-skinned. And therefore, if you have a pale skin and you are white and blonde and you are trying to dress up as Moana, then you are racist, and you as a parent should not be allowing your child to culturally appropriate someone of the Polynesian descent. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. I find it quite comical because get over it! And predominantly those people have darker skin, which there's nothing wrong with that, and you would think that they'd be prideful of people wanting to dress up like them as opposed to being offended by them. Again, I don't even think they're the ones throwing the fit about it, as opposed to just the predominantly white individual that feels bad about their skin color. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Ag News from Mid-America Ag Network. I'm Craig Mead.
Hey, welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. A good Monday morning to you. It's a Halloween Eve. Let's celebrate it as such. And I got to say, talking about the Halloween costumes, it really kind of put a damper on here because I was wanting to dress up as Moana this year. I mean, I may have an identity crisis to some degree, and I think that I need to dress up as a dark-skinned, dark-haired high school girl so that way I feel better, because I identify that as that way. That's how I identify today. So you know what? You need to respect me that way. And if I feel like dressing up as Moana for Halloween, then you would think that I would have the right to do so. Because then, if I'm a Polynesian high school girl, then, you know what, I might actually, well, never mind. I might actually be able to get some perks and chip off some of my student loan debt to some degree. Welcome back into it here. 316-721-8255, 316-721. This is the stupidity that we have to deal with, so why not play into it, right? Why not poke fun at them? Because this is just the ridiculousness of society. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Looking at, I'm very proud. It's week number 8, and I have yet to watch a single NFL game this entire season. I have not talked about it. I've talked about it. I have not watched one. I have not paid attention to them in any way, shape, or form. I don't care about the NFL at all this year, and I've heard a lot of individuals wanting to do the same thing. Just not care about the NFL in any way, shape, or form, and it seems to be working. As of week number 7, last week, NFL was down 5% from last year across the board when it comes to ratings. The primetime games are down 8% across the board on all the major networks. Now, the head of Fox Sports, FS1, mentioned the fact that the ratings are down because they're too saturated throughout the market on numerous different games, tons of games going on at the same time on numerous different networks, and therefore we're just too spread thin, and that's why they actually don't have any ratings. So they're trying to blame it on saturation of the market, we understand that this has actually happened and has actually gone down because of all the protests going on, which are still going on, by the way. You would think that they actually would have died off after the first week or two, and everybody threw the uprising, and they were talking about some of the advertisers and sponsors actually pulling their ads when it comes to the NFL, and some of the networks that were not so sure what they were going to do. I don't know if you've recognized or realized or not, but now they don't even air the national anthem on the TV broadcast. They don't, which is really sad and pathetic itself, because every sporting event starts with the national anthem, and every TV outlet and every news outlet and every cable channel ends up broadcasting the national anthem, because that's just what you do. So people at home can see the flag, so people can hear the national anthem, and that's just the way it works. Now they don't even broadcast it. Why? Because then you see the players kneeling, then you hear the people in the crowd booing, and everybody's all up in arms before the event, and that's really the main spectator event of the actual NFL game, is who's going to kneel? Who's going to kneel today? So now we're seeing the primetime games go down 8% in the ratings. We see across the board as an average 5% of the ratings going down. Not to mention that the stands are beginning to not fill up as much as they used to. And according to Breitbart, it's in what's become one of the most predictable stories in all of sports, the NFL's early games featured plenty of empty seats. There's pictures of games that happened all over yesterday, and the tweets that were out on it. Here's one. Oh, Cincinnati, you have Halloween figured out. Where are all the fans dressed up as empty seats? Kind of nice, right? I mean, it works out. They have Tampa Bay. Tampa is not overly inspired either, despite hosting the rival Panthers in an important division matchup, and quite a few empty seats across the board when you're looking at the stadium. Why do you think that is? Now, I do have to say, I find it comical because the sports guys and sports talk radio hosts, if you listen to sports talk at all, have been commenting on this as well. And it was funny because I actually had to call one out on Friday night. They were talking about the players protesting, and they were talking about union contracts, and they were talking about the constant. I find it very ironic when sports guys who know every stat about a player and their trades and the teams and how well they do and their matchups and their makeups, and that's all fascinating and great. I don't do anything of that. Obviously, I don't follow that as much. But all of a sudden, sports guys that know the stats and players and the trades and the teams and how all these guys end up doing, they know that stuff really well. But all of a sudden, now they're masters of the Constitution as well, and they know about legal stuff. They know about politics. Because the guy that I listen to, which I'm not going to name the name here at all, he's a good talk show host, and I enjoy him for the entertainment purposes. But for the content that he had, just railing and railing and railing about the First Amendment and the right to First Amendment and the right to freedom of speech and the right to this and the right to that. And I tweeted him and I said, you're absolutely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. The First Amendment has zero to do with the kneeling of the national anthem. Why? Because you're not violating the government. The government's not coming down on you here. It's not the government you're worried about, which the freedom of speech and the First Amendment protects your right to freedom of speech from the government. That's not the case here. That's not what we have. What we're dealing with is a private company that says, well, you're putting on the jersey, you're representing the NFL, you're representing my team, and you're not really representing it properly. Should we make you stand for the national anthem? Because that's what we want as a representative of our company and the face that we have. Because obviously people are not turning in and purchasing our product and enjoying our product or actually purchasing through the advertisers as the consumer, and it's harming our business. And as the one that represents our business, we're going to decide whether we're going to make you stand or not. But these sports guys that think they're absolute experts all of a sudden because now, First Amendment rights. Yeah, give me a break here. Let's grow up a little bit, shall we? Because that's not even in the discussion in any way, shape, or form. Got some calls lined up here. We'll take you as soon as we come back. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason.
Happy Halloween.
Boo.
Get out of here! Come on! This way! Come on!
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Always worried
That's usually what happens when we argue with a Democrat. Run away! We don't know what's going on. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason here on the Mid-America Network. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Shoot me a message, by the way, on Facebook on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Who's Your Reason. The Facebook live feed is going on as well. If you want to check that out, we appreciate it and love it when you do. All you got to do is just like and follow the pages. If you like the Facebook live feed and share it, we appreciate that as well. Let's grow, let's expand, let's have a fun time on a Halloween Eve. And with that, let's go right to the phone, shall we? Got calls lining up, 316-721-8255. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Jim.
Jim, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Over the weekend, a friend of mine sent me an email with a story in it, which is actually fake news. Apparently, somebody with Photoshop decided to make it look like a locker room photo from the Seattle Seahawks had players burning the flag in the locker room. It's fake news.
Yeah, totally fake news. Yeah, I've seen that as well, and it's been floating around with people trying to take it to the extreme, and it's really pathetic. I got to say, it's really sad because we can't have an actual discussion about things anymore. And it doesn't matter whether it's politics, like something like this, when they try and Photoshop people burning a flag inside a locker room, or whether it's even if you like the conspiratorial stuff and like talking about extraterrestrials or about different conspiracy theories, because you never know what's actually fake now with an actual picture or a video between CGI effects, or whether it's actually a legit thing. And
it's like the news all weekend of the indictments that are coming.
Sure.
You know, I'm willing to bet a nickel, because that's all I can afford. I'm willing to bet a nickel that they come out with an indictment for Hillary Clinton for writing the fake dossier.
They're not going to indict her. Listen, as much as even with a special investigative group, even with Trey Gowdy going after her for the Russian thing and for the uranium thing, and for all, look, Hillary Clinton is never going to be indicted. As much as I want to see it, as much as I would love to see it, Hillary Clinton will never be indicted, because the government itself is just as corrupt as she is. There's too many backdoor shenanigans going on from both sides of the aisle, because that's the way government bureaucrats work and the establishment works, to where they don't mind doing things backdoor. And if they indict her, then that just opens up an entire Pandora's box of everything else going on within the government that they don't want us to know about. And she's too powerful. She still has too much money. She still has too much influence, and people still end up going missing if that's the case. So I mean, as much as I would love to see it, she's not going to be indicted. It's just not going to happen. 316-721-8255. Appreciate the call, though, Jim, very much. So let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, happy Monday.
Myron, how are you, sir?
I am great.
Good.
I saw something yesterday on Facebook that I want to share with your widest audience here.
Okay.
Never heard of them before, but they're the Moron Brothers. And they have a song about kneeling or not kneeling. The synopsis, they'll kneel for God, they'll kneel for Jesus, but they'll stand up for our country. I just thought it was fantastic, and I'd like it to go viral.
That's really good. That's a good point. I'd like to remind everybody that, I mean, just the fact that we have to kneel during the national anthem because that's the protest that they choose is still, to me, very offensive. And if we talk about being offended today, in today's times, we talk about the snowflakes, we talk about the people that love their safe space. To me, the one thing, I guess the two things that'll make me very offended and will make me very angry is if you disrespect my family or if you disrespect my country. And those two things would drive me nuts, and I don't like that. But you're right. I mean, that's a good way to think about it. You kneel when you're praying, you kneel when you're showing respect there, and you stand for our flag. So the ones that try and say that we're putting the flag and our Pledge of Allegiance above God, which I've heard that argument now, is that when we stand for the national anthem and we say it and we put our hand over our heart, that we're actually violating our pact with God, because we're actually putting our country above our religion, when that's not necessarily the case. If you're actually doing what is appropriate, which is kneeling during prayer and standing to respect your country.
Yeah. Something else that I think a lot of people miss is when you take a job, you surrender your First Amendment rights to your boss.
Yes.
The First Amendment protects you from the government, but if a boss doesn't like what you say, they'll fire you, and it's perfectly legal.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's what I don't get, which is why I find it quite comical. And I made a post on it this weekend on social media Friday night, was that you're right. These sports talk hosts that I had to take a jab at because they're talking about the First Amendment and talking about their freedom of speech. And all of a sudden now these guys that know about stats of baseball players and football players and basketball players, all of a sudden now they're professionals when it comes to the First Amendment, when it comes to constitutional rights, when they know nothing about it. So to even bring it up shows the ignorance and naiveness of the discussion, because the First Amendment has nothing to do with this. The government's not saying you must stand for this flag. It's the company saying you represent us. We're getting a bad rep here. We're losing consumers. We're losing customers. We don't want that, and we need to do a policy change here, and therefore we need you to stand for the national anthem. Now, I do agree with them when they talked about the union contracts, because the unions are the ones that haggle for the quote-unquote rights of the players and all that jazz. But again, if you have a union representing you, first off, you've given up your freedoms already there. But second, it really makes your argument about intolerance and bigotry and unfairness even more naive and ignorant and stupid, because you actually have a union fighting for your rights while you're making a multi-million-dollar contract. So the fact that the world's unfair and that you have less opportunity because you're a person of a minority descent in some way, shape, or form, regardless of what that is, kind of goes out the window when you're making multi-millions of dollars and you have a union contract representing you to the corporation.
Yeah, I understand completely that an NFL owner can't really enforce it because they'd have to forfeit a game. But the one team where a bunch of them kneeled because the owner of the team had made some statement. I really wish financially that particular coach or that particular owner could just suspend them for a game. Say, you're going to protest what I say, you're not going to get paid.
Sure. I would agree. Now, again, that comes down to what the union contracts actually say, to whether they're allowed to do that or not. I would love to see that. I'd love to see some NFL grand rule, blanket rule across the board saying that every member of every player needs to stand during the national anthem, that you will be out on the field at that time. You will not be hiding in the locker room like some weasels. You will be on the sidelines. You will be standing for the national anthem. You will be respecting it, and then we can move on and actually focus on the game, which is what people are there to see. But the fact that you've turned it into something like this, we're going to change that. And if they were able to make a policy that way and make it abide by the union contracts, I say go for it. But again, unions, thanks to those guys and individuals, they we got to make this PC for radio here. The unions have again been able to defend and protect the anarchy that the players want to commit here in front of all the consumers and the corporation itself.
Yeah, see, what I do now, and like you say, the sports guys bring it up, I won't watch the first part of a game. If it starts at 12:15, I'll tune in about 12:20. And in fact, yesterday when I watched the game, it was perfect. I turned it to the game, and they're kicking off. But of course, during the game, they got to talk about what this team did or what these individuals did. My freedom is to not watch them.
Sure. Well, you're absolutely right. And you can choose to watch the entire game, and like you did, tune in during kickoff. But again, that's another reason why the ratings are going down, is because not only is it just happening at the beginning of the game, but the talking heads and the pundits that are there and all the commentators are talking about it throughout the game. So you still can't even get away from it. That's why I haven't watched in a single game. I haven't turned it on. My wife's a big Broncos fan, and she kind of checks in every once in a while just to get a status update, but I will not turn it on the TV. I will not watch the games. I guess apparently yesterday the Houston Texans, just about the entire team took a kneel during the national anthem, and then again the talking heads mentioned it throughout the entire game. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want anything to do with it. So they're just not going to get my little blip in the ratings. They're not going to get my view of the advertisers. They're not going to get any of it, because I just don't want to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I really enjoy the fact when you have a 3-year-old, You don't need football on Sunday. You can play with your daughter.
Well, exactly. See, I like that. Myra and I appreciate it. And we did actually. Yesterday was kind of a fun day. The wife was a little under the weather. She's got kind of the sore throat, cold thing going on. Luckily, I've not gotten that, but I got a good day after going out and doing the whole trick-or-treating thing all day on Saturday and having fun at the concert, which, by the way, being in Kansas, she dressed up as Dorothy and had the little box, a little basket there with Toto in it. So there you go. We were trying to fulfill our Kansas mentality here. But we did that all day on Saturday. Yesterday we had fun as we played inside and stayed warm and had a good time. So you know what? That's what it's all about. I don't care. And she loves football too, which my daughter is pretty fantastic because she loves NASCAR and she loves football. And those are two things. I think it's because there's a lot of movement and a lot of shiny, bright colors on both of those with the teams, with their jerseys, and then with the NASCAR cars and their bright colors and everything. So she loves both of them. She really does. So it was fun. It was just a fun day yesterday. And we watched a crap ton of movies while we were just enjoying up there and just having a lighthearted day. Ended up watching, I don't even remember what all we watched, but it was fun. It was a family day. And we can do the family day without watching NFL. And I know this is kind of old news and people are tired of hearing about it, but I wanted to give you an update that 7-8 weeks into the NFL season, we're 5% down in the ratings across the board, 8% down for prime time games, and the stadiums cannot fill an entire stadium for a game anymore. They can't do it. That means that there is a movement of people saying, like Myron, like myself, just saying, we can't deal with this. We're not going to support these guys. We're not going to watch it. And if you not only do it at the beginning of the game, but you talk about it throughout the entire game, you're going to lose our support. And something has to give. And again, the unions trying to manipulate the market in order to make it beneficial for themselves as opposed to doing what's best for the consumer, because the consumer's tired of it. The consumer's sick of it. And the union, like any other union does, ends up ruining the entire industry because they're trying to defend these guys when the corporation's saying, hey, we're seeing a hit. We need to change something. Nope, I don't care. It's all about those guys and whatever they want to do, and we're going to protect that because if you try and change it, then you're violating their rights. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the extreme utopia. To someone who says that they have freedoms and rights, but only is doing what the union tells them to do. And that's really what unions are really good for. That's it. End of story. This is the Voice of Reason on the Mid-American Network. Let's take one more break. It didn't even get to what we wanted to talk about this hour, but it's still a good conversation. We'll touch on a little bit what's coming up here in the next couple weeks. When we come back, this is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one. It's hard to believe. Goes by way too fast. Happy Monday. Happy Halloween Eve. Let's celebrate it as such, shall we? It's a holiday tomorrow. I hope we got to have a little fun with this. Come on. I hope everybody goes to work tomorrow dressed up in a Halloween costume. Why? If only for the fact to offend the progressive that doesn't like the fact that we appropriate different cultures or something. Then to me, that's totally worth it right there. You don't even have to say a word. Actions. And they don't like that. And when you actually do that, then, oh, it's the end of the world. How dare that you culturally appropriate somebody. I really think we need to. We need to find that. I think I need to dress up as Moana tomorrow because, well, I self-identify. I wonder, the ones who say that I'm culturally appropriating a whole different culture because dressing up as a dark-skinned Polynesian girl, I wonder if they would be okay with a white male dressing up as Moana because, now I self-identify as a female to that degree because that's how I want to express myself. So if that's the case, I wonder if they would lighten up on the whole, it's offensive and you shouldn't do that. I'm very curious to see how they would respond to this. I don't know. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK, listener on Facebook, that the NFL won't change a single policy until it actually hits their pocketbooks deeply. And I know it kind of did a little bit I know that some advertisers began pulling a lot of their ads, but apparently not enough. And because you're right, we change it through the private market. We change it through capitalism. We change something based on how the market and the consumers respond to it. It's that bell curve. Are they still getting enough profit for them to be like, yeah, okay, we're really not going to change anything? And I know that you can talk about the corporation, the CEOs of the corporation like Roger Goodell and the head of the NFL on whether they're going to do something or not, whether they're backtracking, and it doesn't really matter to me. And I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on it, but you're right. I mean, that's the only way we change stuff. If they don't have any consumers, then they will change something because they're all about getting ratings and getting consumers. They want people to come out and see their advertisers and see the event. And if we don't do that, then it's a lost cause, and they can't pay the hundreds of millions of dollars per player in order for them to play a game for a living while complaining about intolerances. To me, that just drives me nuts. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have all across the state of Kansas and even outside of the state maybe, a lot of these special elections coming up a week from tomorrow when it comes to city council, when it comes to school boards. Here in the local area, we're talking to the city council candidates and school board candidates, as many of them as we can. As soon as this is done in the next week, we're going to be shifting gears and we're going to be focusing heavily on the legislative sessions that are going on. Oklahoma is still going through their special session, and we'll get another update from, hopefully we can get the governor on from Oklahoma as well to chat a little bit about what they're doing down there. We'll get the Oklahoma Policy Institute back on the show. Here in Kansas, we have every one of our legislators. We're going to try and get as many of them on as we can, specifically members of the House that are going into, remember, in a year from now, midterm elections. And every single one of those individuals that's up for election, we need to look at to see what they did with their policies this last session. Did they vote for the tax increase? Did they vote for Medicaid expansion? Did they try to repeal the carry on campus for firearms? Did they try and do X, Y, and Z? So we'll be talking to as many of those as we can. I did get the contact for some of them from the western part of the state, the Garden City area. Yeah, have fun. We're going to try and talk to some of those. I did get the contact info. I'll be reaching out here shortly. So if you're listening, stay tuned in because I'm going to find you. We'll get you on the show. We'll be doing some panel discussions from as many of them as we can on the show, talking about the new legislative session, because not only is it going to be important for this year, next year in 2019, we have a 2-year budget cycle, and my fear, I almost see this happening. Almost. Except for the fact that there is an election this year, coming up next year. I would almost see another tax increase being pushed this year because of the education spending, because of the potential Medicaid expansion, because of whatever else they want to spend on, and the increase of different programs that they see are not being suitably funded and spent on and whatever. I almost see them trying to put, the only thing that would stop them from doing so would be the midterm election coming up next year, because they don't want to go in 2 years in a row and say that, yeah, I represent the Republican Party especially, I represent conservative values, but oh, by the way, I voted for tax increases 2 years in a row, and I'll probably be doing it again in our 2-year budget cycle next year in 2019 after the election again. I don't see them doing that, which is a good thing for us for this year, but that just means that they're going to try and make us forget about what happened 2 years ago, or last year right now, when it came to their tax increases, and we can't allow that to happen. So we're going to hold them accountable, we're going to be focusing on the midterms, and we're going to get ready for 2019, both with the midterm elections and the gubernatorial races. A lot coming up. It's The Voice of Reason, everybody on the western part of the state and beyond. Have a great day. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1% to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Happy Monday morning to you. It's a beautiful day. It's chilly. It's cold. It's the end of October. Can you believe it? This year, I have to say, has gone faster than any other year before. We're already to the beginning, the kickoff of the triage of Halloween festivities and the 3 holidays coming up. Halloween right around the corner. It's Halloween Eve. Let's enjoy it. It's also a Monday, so let's go ahead and start it off the right way, shall we? We got to set the tone for the day, for the entire week. We got to get pumped up. We got to get ready to go. We have to have a little fun on a Monday morning. What do you say?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
721-8255-721-TALK. If you want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. Shoot me a message on Facebook on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Who's Your Reason. The Facebook live feed is up and rolling as well. I'd really love it and appreciate it if you liked it, shared it on your page. Let's create something big here. Let's have a little fun with it, shall we? I'm thinking for Halloween, since every costume, no matter what you do anyways, is offensive and bigoted and racist and culturally appropriating to some way, shape, or form for whatever reason, if that's the case, then I say we play into that. What do you say? I say that someone should dress up as Colin Kaepernick and then complain about the terribleness of the world. I say, come on. Why not? I say that no matter what, you go around and you just kneel in places and talk about the terrible horribleness of how terrible you've been persecuted as an individual of minority descent while you have $1 million contract and you have a union defending you and protecting you from other people. So there you go. You could dress up as Colin Kaepernick. Well, I guess not because you don't have a contract right now. Oh, zing! You could dress up as Floyd Mayweather maybe. And then you could just dress up as Floyd Mayweather and then run around and run away from everybody when they come after you. Come on. A little clever, right? Or you could dress up, of course, as Moana and then from the Disney cartoon, and then you could culturally appropriate every Hawaiian and Polynesian because now you want to be a person of dark skin color, and they apparently find that offensive that you want to be like that character. So whatever the case is, I'm starting to like Halloween more and more just because of the fact that, hey, I get to invade people's safe spaces, and I find that quite entertaining. This hour, The Voice of Reason brought to you by network consultants, business owners. Listen up. You have programs running on your computers. You have a network maybe of numerous computers. Network consultants can help you out. They're an infrastructure company. They help out setting up your firewalls and sonic walls, database safety and security, not just setting up, but maintaining them as well. Maybe you've had it for years. Maybe things are a little loosey-goosey in your network and you have some glips and blips and different problems in there. They can help you. They'll set up your database safety and security, network communication, VPN and backup solutions, maybe even setting you up on the cloud. As many people doing that now for the backup for all of their files for their business. They work with small to medium businesses, so perfect for you, the small business owner. You have all those different programs running on your computers. They make sure your computers and your network are running smoothly to allow all your programs to run smoothly. It's really the side of the business that does not get a lot of attention because it costs actually more money than it to fix it than it does to actually maintain it. And a lot of times people just don't want to focus on that or they have other things in mind. I get it, but it is kind of important for you. Call now. Tell them I sent you. You get a free network analysis. They'll visit your business, review your system, help you any way that you can, even help guide you to manage your own network, unlike any other company that actually wants the business all the time. So therefore, they make you call them every time you have an issue. They can help you and give you the tools to be able to do it yourself. They do have month-to-month plans available. You don't have to sign any long-term agreements. All you have to do is pick up the phone and make a phone call. Call them 316-201-4624. Again, 316-201-4624. Or go to network-consultants.com. Network-consultants.com. Tell them I sent you here on The Voice of Reason. We're getting ready for a week from tomorrow, special elections with the school board, for the Wichita School Board, for certain city councils across the state and in our certain area here. And we're going to be focusing on that. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, Walt Chappell, candidate for Wichita School Board, is going to be joining us. And when we talk about education, when we talk about government spending, when we talk about government programs, conservatives, and rightly so to most degree, in my opinion, fall into a category of, is it something that we actually necessarily need? Is it something that we really have to be spending money on? Because we are independent fellows. We like to actually do things ourselves. We like to actually figure it out ourselves. It takes me 20 minutes to a half an hour to actually have to ask for help or look at directions if I'm trying to build something. Why? Because I want to do it myself, and I want to figure it out myself. And my wife kind of laughs at me and gets mad because I could have it built in 10 minutes if I actually look at the directions, but I don't want to look at the directions. I don't know if it's because I'm a guy and that's what guys do. I don't know if it's because I'm a conservative and that's what conservatives do, but we want to figure it out. We are independent. And we want to figure it out ourselves. And if we can't figure it out, we have to come to that conclusion ourselves that we've made a mistake and that we don't know what we're doing. We can't have someone else tell us that, because if they tell us that, then we become more ingrained ourselves of, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, because that's just my personality and my mentality. That's what we do. But when we come to government programs, the government is stubborn in that sense as well, because they want to spend and spend and spend and spend and spend and spend and spend. Look at this program. Look at that program. We got to do this. We got to do that. And they need to come to their own conclusion that they don't know what the hell they're doing sometimes, or that they don't need to be there because they want that iron grip control, whether it's for good intentions because they really are trying to help individuals when they're really not, or whether it's just the government bureaucracy of them showing and knowing that it's not good, but it's the government control and they have that iron grip power over you. Regardless of what it is, it's very difficult for the government as an entity to realize what programs actually work and what programs actually don't work. And as conservatives, we focus on the programs that do not work. But we need to sometimes focus on programs that actually do. And of course, by working, meaning that we keep the bureaucracy very, very low, that we keep the spending very, very low, and that we find ways to make it as efficient in operating as we possibly can. So that way it's the least amount of taxpayer funds and investment as we possibly can to make it run like a business, to where they can work on very little to nothing, the same as what a business does. You as a small business, you realize that you have to work on little to nothing. That you have to invest in your employees, you have to invest in technology, you have to invest in tools, you have to invest in resources, you have to buy the product that you're trying to turn around and sell, or you have to buy the materials to make the product in order to sell it. Regardless, you have a very low ROI, return on investment. The government needs to remember the same thing. And I mentioned this briefly last week in my trip up to the Hutchinson Corrections Facility. And I got to tell you a little bit about that travel and a little bit about that experience, which was very phenomenal. And I appreciated, again, them letting me come up and see all of this. But one way that we can have an example of government programs that I believe do work and that we need to make sure are running efficiently as we do, but we also need to give credit as a government program, by the way, created by a conservative governor like Sam Brownback. Even people who despise Governor Brownback are like, this is actually kind of working. Would be the different programs, the mentorship programs, the different programs we have within the corrections facilities. And they're very well regulated. They're very well done. And as I went in, we got to see some of the classrooms. And they had the electrical classes and the plumbing classes, the math classes, and they would go, and these individuals in there who maybe have never gotten a GED, who maybe have never gotten the opportunity to actually go to school because they never had structure. And again, I mentioned last week that the word that came to mind the entire time that I witnessed this was structure. Giving these individuals structure who maybe never had structure in their life before. And they're there to be punished, absolutely. And I never have been one to play the victim or use the example of, you know what, they've never had structure, they've had different issues in their life before, so therefore it's not really their fault, we need to rehabilitate them. I've always been one of punishment. But at the same time with the punishment, we need to give them the tough love. And love nonetheless, but tough love, which is what I'm an advocate for. Because yes, we're going to punish you for what you did because you did something very, very bad. But we want you to recognize that you did something very, very bad. We want you to rectify that situation. And we want to make sure that when you come out, that you're going to be a better person because of it and that you're not going to go back in. Did you realize, what was it, $27,000, $28,000 a year of our taxpayer money goes to one inmate? One inmate, $27,000, $28,000 a year. That's insane with how expensive that is. But it's more expensive when they go out and they make another issue and they cause another fit and they cause another crime and they go back in. And when you see a return rate of 60, 70, 80%, which is what they were saying, we're spending a lot more money than what we need to do. And while we were going around there and we were seeing some of these programs, seeing the classes, seeing them work, and again, they had different tiers depending on the ability of them to actually be able to function to some degree, or whether they just weren't worth it, that you could see some of them were making 60 cents a day by doing something. Some of them were making 60 cents an hour to be able to work, being productive. Some of them were sewing clothes, like the jumpsuits for the prison inmates, or for jeans, and by the way, they were going to all around to the different facilities throughout the state. Then you could see private entities going in, setting up shops there for manufacturing and paying them minimum wage. And you could say, well, that's not very efficient of the business, but they have a heart to want to teach somebody, to give them a trade, to give them an opportunity. And oh, by the way, the majority of these guys saving it up so that way when they get out, they can pay all their legal fees, so they don't have to commit another crime in order to offset the debts that they're in going back into society when they have a hard time adapting anyways. These types of programs, it may be especially the government ones when they're working for 60 cents a day or 60 cents an hour, goes towards, it's taxpayer funded, you and I. But when you really look at it, we're actually investing in the future of these individuals so that way they don't have to come back to that same situation again. They don't have to go back in. And when we do that, it's cheaper in the long run for us to invest in these individuals to that degree. And to me, I see that as a successful government program. Governor Brownback, well done. Kudos to you for doing something like this. They mentioned something like the Freedom Challenge that they have at the corrections facility, which was a great organization. It's a great program that's Christian-based. They sit there, they read the Bible, they learn about the wrongdoings that they did. They have challenges that they have to do within the prison. And now, again, it's a different standard of what you and I talk about here, because we're talking about trying to make someone realize that raping a female or numerous females is a bad thing to do. Recognizing the fact that murdering somebody is a bad thing to do. So we're starting on a whole different level here. And one really good way that was put to me while we were there was that we're trying to talk to a 40-year-old with a 15-year-old's mindset. And when we do that and we understand that, first off, I got to give him credit for patience, because I'm not a person of patience. My 3-year-old gets on my nerves many a time because, well, she's a baby and she, acts out. And I have a very hard time with patience. Lay down the law. That's the way it is. When I tell you, do it. That's it. End of story. I'm just the kind of person I am. So I would not be able to do something like that. And the people that work at the corrections facilities, I have to give them credit for that, because they have the patience of Gandhi to some degree, because they understand who they're dealing with and who they're working with. And with something like the Freedom Challenge that they have, it gives them credit to understand religion, understand to hold themselves to hold themselves accountable the way that they need to, and then teaches them the values that you and I usually grew up with structure. And these types of programs, these mentorship programs, they have the horse program there with where they try and tame wild Mustangs. And they have hundreds of these horses there. And these types of programs, giving them something to look forward to, giving them something to do, giving them something to look forward to each and every day, to hold themselves accountable, be busybodies, and learn structure in their life is exactly what we have to do. These, in my opinion, are where we have successful, efficient government programs. And we have to recognize those. Now, when we go into this new legislative session, as you know, over the last few months, there's been the discussion about the corrections facility officers and trying to raise up their salaries. And between them guarding, to some degree, the inmates, being the positive reinforcement to some degree in their lives as well, they talk about pro-social behaviors, the way that we, when we act and when the corrections officers act in front of the inmates, they see that as the positive role model, and they try and mimic that. And that's good. So between being that quote-unquote role model, between actually guarding them, between them actually being the first responders if there is an incident, if there's maybe a fight, if there's a health issue, if someone passes out, has a heart attack, whatever the case is, those officers need to be trained to be able to handle that. In my opinion, they do absolutely 100% across the board need salary hikes, because these individuals need to be taken care of, because they do a job that, first off, I don't think a lot of people would want to do, and they have a lot of responsibilities, a lot of duties. Is that something we need to spend on? Probably. We need to find the money for it. I know where we can pull it from with some of the inefficient government spending, like education, like some of the other programs that we have in the government. There are many programs throughout the state government and federal government, obviously, that are extremely inefficient, that do not spend wisely, and that are completely corrupt and overrun by bureaucrats. This one, especially in the state of Kansas, in a role model that many other states are beginning to look at, and even President Trump's administration is talking to Brownback to try and set up as a role model for the National Department of Corrections, is something that we should be very proud of in this state. Is something that is funded by government, but yet is something that we can be proud of as something run efficiently by our state government. We need to look at that. 728-2557. Maybe you disagree with me here, but I see a lot of opportunity that we can use as an example, again, from a state, from a community, that we can show other individuals and other companies and other states on how to run things the proper way, because it's the Kansas way. What do you say? This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You're listening to your home for local conservative talk, the Big Talker, KQAM.
Let's go right to the phones here, shall we? 721-825-5721-TALK. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey. Happy Monday.
What's going on, sir?
Well, I want everybody to think about, these correction officers, law enforcement, school teachers. If you wouldn't do what they do for no more money than they make, they need a raise.
Well, absolutely. I think they definitely do need a raise. I think that with the hours that they have to work, with the duties that they have, with the responsibilities that they have, and the fact that many of the inmates, when they are working sometimes, now I don't know about Hutchinson's correctional facility, but some of the other corrections facilities, when they are working, that they're potentially making more than the officers themselves. I see that as a problem. I think the officers definitely need a raise, and that's not government bureaucrats or manipulation. That's just the fact that there is a program that is successful, that is kind of important, and we need to make sure that they get the proper funding for it.
Yeah, I also think the Department of Corrections should do whatever they could to publicize those employers that come in and put the inmates to work at minimum wage, because at that, they're earning with starting wages, but when they leave the penitentiary, if the company is good and they've done good work, they've got a job recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what those kind of programs are all about. And that's why, again, the fact that we have opportunities like this that I don't think any other state or any other Department of Corrections opportunities like that are really out there. I don't think that there are. This is unique. Governor Brownback started that, so think what you want about the governor, good, bad, or indifferent. That's something that we need to be proud of here, and we need to use that as an example for other places. Bottom of the hour news coming up here. We got lots more coming up when we come back. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Patriotism is alive and well.
We were so excited when Donald Trump got elected that we weren't going to be bullied any longer. We weren't going to have people push us around. We're not going to apologize for who we are, and we're not going to let people walk all over us. We're not going to tolerate it because we're not the weak, spineless country that we used to be.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call?
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Appreciate you hanging out with us today on a Halloween Eve. It's a spooky day. I think that's what we should be excited about. Ladies and gentlemen, there's breaking news. There's numerous bits of breaking news, but apparently the really, really, really big, important breaking news is that celebrity and actor Kevin Spacey apparently lives his life as a gay man. Did you know that? The breaking news, according to Reuters, as their big headline on social media spreading right now. I'd like to respond by saying,
We don't care anymore.
what's that?
We don't care anymore.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Say that again, please.
We don't care anymore.
Oh, one more time. I can't quite hear you.
We don't care anymore.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that we got that clear. That yeah, there you go. 721-825-5721 Talk. Now, the big news, as you heard at the bottom of the hour news, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates being told to surrender to federal authorities as Mueller grand jury indicts them in first charges from special counsel probe. Now it's all proven. It's all for sure that Trump had colluded with Russians during election. Fun times to be had by all. And again, I might just want to play the song again just to reiterate how big that news is as well. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. This is Carl.
Carl Peterjohn. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm fine. Since you were talking about criminal justice, but before we get on to it, Andy, did they say in the news brief what percentage of the American uranium that the Trump campaign and Paul Manafort sold to the Russians as part of this?
No, of course not, because, that doesn't really matter. They deserved it, and they deserved that uranium. We should have given it to them anyways, and the fact that, the Clinton Foundation just had to do that, on the side, it doesn't matter. They're not colluding with Russians here, Carl. It's all about President Trump because he's a terrible, horrible human being, and everybody he associates with are all white supremacists, and therefore we colluded with Russians, and 60+ million voters were actually Russian spies trying to manipulate this election.
Well, I remember Anna Chapman from 2010, the really hot Russian spy that got into all the Washington inside the Beltway stuff, and I think became the basis for a successful TV show, The Americans. But that's not the reason I was calling, Andy. You wanted to talk about government programs at work, and I'd like to give a little plug to Governor Brownback, who it's not well known and didn't get reported, but I don't think the governor's office promoted it much. The fact that Governor Brownback and his Secretary of Corrections several years ago actually went in and spent the night and slept in a cell just like any other inmate in one of the Kansas prisons, and had the experience of what it's like to be within the confines of the Kansas Department of Corrections. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I'm going to talk about here in Sedgwick County, it was costing us about $20,000 a year per prisoner to have a person confined within the sheriff's custody in the Sedgwick County Jail, which there's a big difference between being in jail and being in prison. But
sure.
But the point from a program that works, we had on some days between 1,700 and 1,800 prisoners, and our capacity was only about 2/3 of that for the Sedgwick County Jail, and they were talking about spending literally over $50 million for an expansion that would have added less than 400 beds. And I know throwing out numbers on radio is not a good thing to do, but the most expensive part of that would have been we would have had to hire a large number of people in the sheriff's detention operation to be able to handle that.
Sure.
And we were able to bend that curve and identify the fact we had a lot of what I'd call knuckleheads, people who wouldn't show up for court appointments for often sometimes relatively minor, not paying parking ticket type offenses, and other people who just couldn't get their lives together very well. And we managed to bend that curve, and the key was to keep the people of Sedgwick County safe from some truly dangerous folks who are out there. I mean, people who've been charged, although sometimes not convicted. Well, none of them have been convicted of major felonies like murder and rape. But it's also a fact that unfortunately under state law, we've got felons who have to serve their term in the Sedgwick County Jail for DUIs. And so that's a cost to local taxpayers.
Sure.
Most felons are in state prison.
Well, I do have to say that, between the state and even the counties, as you mentioned, trying to curb a lot of those expenses and the per inmate cost that there is that goes along with that is something that I think that you're right, that I think Kansas and Governor Brownback, we should be very proud of and happy about, because we are curving that expense. We are not only curving the expense of it while they're in there, but also creating those incentive programs and the mentorship programs and the programs to when they get out, they're not returning. What did they say? They saw a 40% drop, 60% drop of returned inmates after they've actually gone through these programs, which is, to me, insanely successful. We should be we should be extremely gloating about this and telling every other state that they should mimic our system here, that we should be talking about something like this at the federal level, that we should actually be really excited and proud of the fact that, hey, it's unfortunate we have individuals going into the system, but guess what? They're not coming back into it after they come out of a successful government program of rehabilitation to some degree, of learning a trait, of learning structure, and then coming out and being able to function in society again.
Well, I would point out basically my experience was at the county level and not the state, so I can't speak to the state information you've got from your visit, although I have been to the Hutchinson Correctional Facility and toured it like you did. But I would point out the fact that here at the county level, we were able to bend that curve through programs like pretrial sentencing and drug court and a whole host of other options to try and help people get their lives together, because most of the folks who end up in jail are going to be back out, often within a relatively short period of time. And when we had 1,700 people in custody, some days it was actually getting close to 1,800.
Sure.
We managed to bend that curve back to a number closer to, when I left the commission, it was around 1,400 per day. And the key was to keep the community safe at as reasonable a cost as possible, Andy. And I viewed that as a program that we were able to do at Sedgwick County that didn't get the attention it deserved. It was significant because we were getting people who, if they didn't pay their parking tickets or frankly couldn't stop chasing the beer wagon, we were coming up with ways to keep the community safe, but not to put a huge tab on it, and that needs something that needs to be worked on. There's a wonderful book out by an interesting fellow by the name of Bernie Carrick. It's called Jailer to Jailed, about his experience both as a law enforcement officer, which he was very distinguished at, and then I think, frankly, he makes a pretty good case that he was abused by the criminal justice system at the federal level. Sort of the opposite of what happens if you're on the wrong side of the political fence, because he was a Republican, and at one point Bush appointed him to be a Secretary of Homeland Security, but he withdrew his nomination. He had some problems with it, but he ended up spending 4 years in federal prison. So the book gives an interesting view of both sides of the criminal justice system, and I recommend it highly to you and your listeners. But here in Sedgwick County, we've done some things to keep the jail population at a level that it's not going to break the bank at $20,000 per prisoner per year, which is the rough operating cost for each person who's kept incarcerated in the Sedgwick County Jail, versus what happens when those numbers go up. And I am glad that we didn't have to spend over $50 million to do another jail expansion while I had the privilege of being a commissioner.
Sure, absolutely. Carl, I appreciate it, my friend. We got to take a break here, but no, you're absolutely right. And again, I would like to, reiterate, as conservatives, we get this mentality, and remember, we have to be clear sometimes, because they try and lump us in with this, which is unfortunate, that we're anarchists, that we don't like any government program, that we don't like any type of government spending, or we don't like any type of program in any way, shape, or form, which just isn't the case. We want it limited. We want it minimal, and we want to make sure that when it's there, it's running efficiently, which is what we have to really be careful of and pay attention to. And something like the corrections facilities at the statewide level, and again, the difference between prison and jail sort of thing, the county jail and the state prisons, is that there's a big difference there, and each county has to do their own thing. And Sedgwick County seems to have curved that a little bit to make it as efficient as we can, and we could probably go a little bit further, but they've done a good job of starting to address that and work on that. The state prisons, the corrections facilities, have done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, coming up with these programs that was headed by Governor Brownback, that even progressive Democrats cannot stand him, still have to admit, things are actually kind of working kind of nicely at the prisons. Things are actually working nicely at the corrections facilities. On the other hand of it, which is what we're going to be talking about, especially in this upcoming election, is education funding, which is not spent efficiently, which is the problem we have with it. And when we go into this debate, we have to remember as well that they see us as, the progressives being them, lump us as conservatives and Republicans as ones who truly, honestly want to shut down schools, who truly, honestly do not care about the education of the children at all, because we don't advocate for more money being dumped into the system, which is just flat out not true. We have increased spending year over year, which, as you know, we've increased educational spending year over year. We have not cut education spending in any way, shape, or form. It's just been moved around to different places that actually don't go towards the classroom. They don't go towards the teacher. They don't go towards the resources. They don't go towards the children. They go towards the administrative side and the teachers' unions. And that's really where it comes from. We read the story last week, and I'm going to continue to harp on this every single day until the election, and every day until the legislative session, and every day until the election next year for the midterms, and every day after that, because they need to know. You need to know. So when you hear that Republicans and Brownback especially, they just hate children, they want to shut down the schools because they want to throw us into a constitutional crisis and they want to cause all these issues, it's just not true. And like we talked about last week, cash reserves, operating cash reserves, have hit a record high in the state at $1 billion, sitting there for the schools, waiting to be spent for an emergency fund or whatever else they choose to do, while we're increasing state spending, while we have bonds going on in the local districts for new school buildings or new different centers or new different athletic fields or whatever the case is. They're sitting on operating cash reserves at record highs. And Wichita, by the way, is sitting on over $100 million in cash reserves. You want to talk about school spending per pupil? We float around the latest, and you can look this up, and I can put this online as well if you'd like to. And we're going to talk a little bit about this with Walt Chappell coming up at the top of the hour, candidate for Wichita School Board, and every other candidate, by the way, that comes in here as well, that total expense per pupil, district by district, some are floating around like $22,000, $23,000. Now, the average for the state is, the average for Wichita anyways is $13,000. The average for the state, I don't know, because it floats anywhere from $11,000 up to $23,000 per district per student. Is that something that's efficiently spent? Probably not. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM, wrapping up hour number 2. Appreciate you hanging out with us today on a Halloween Eve, pre-Halloween. Can you believe it's the end of October already? Good golly. It's hard to believe. 721-825-5721 talk. By the way, we were talking about, and we'll talk about again in the third hour a little bit, some of the close-minded, bigoted, racist costumes, apparently. Because if you dress up as something, then it's, I guess, bigoted to some degree, and because you want to be something that you're really not. Well, at the same time, the ones that are advocating for that are the ones that advocate for people to do that for real life on an everyday basis. But if you do it for Halloween as a joke, then you're just being insensitive. Well done, guys. Well done. 721-825-5721 talk. By the way, the news that is coming out, it is big news, as it broke just at the bottom of the hour a little bit ago, is that Paul Manafort and Rick Gates being told to surrender to federal authorities as Mueller grand jury indicts them in first charges from special counsel probe. The first charges come from the probe of possible Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. Could be unsealed soon. The New York Times says that Paul Manafort and Rick Gates have been told to surrender. This was shortly after 8 a.m. to turn himself in. The federal grand jury approved the indictment on Friday, and a judge ordered it's sealed at that time. Trump has denied, I love how they throw this in, by the way, this is according to the Daily Mail. Trump has denied the allegation of collusion with the Russians and called the probe a witch hunt. Apparently this one has been some money, some wire transfers that have been transferred back and forth between them and, I guess, somewhere with, I don't know, with Russian companies, with the Russian government. I don't know where it is. So it's going to be fun to see, and we'll see what happens with it. I know that you'll get some news about it throughout the day as more information begins to come out. I'm very skeptical of it, and even if it did happen, then you know what? I'm still waiting to see how that money's tied to the actual election. Maybe they did business prior. I have no idea. I'm not there. I don't have the full story, but that's what's going on right now. Manafort and Gates were on the two-punch responsible for keeping Republican National Convention delegates in line last year as the possibility emerged of a contentious floor fight over the presidential nomination. Manafort was let go shortly after the convention to be replaced by Kellyanne Conway. The Russian investigation has cast a shadow over the U.S. President Donald Trump's 9-month-old presidency and widened the partisan rift between Republicans and Democrats. If Donald Trump released him right after the convention and put in Kellyanne Conway, wouldn't that actually show that he didn't have a whole lot of workings with him then afterwards? I don't know. Maybe they work behind the scenes. But if Kellyanne Conway took that place, Manafort, you would think, would want that position as a federal position, as part of the White House, as part of the administration. You would think would be something that he'd be very upset about if he got let go, and therefore did some wire transfers. And the wire transfers happened back in 2012. I'm trying to think here, but I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump did not announce his presidency in 2012 or 13 when they're saying these wire transfers actually happened. So how this is in relation to Russia and the election, I'm very confused on. I don't know. Although they're going to say that if Donald Trump, I don't know, met with a Russian baby when he was 5 years old and his parents got together for some reason and they were at a foster home together for whatever reason visiting, and he met a foster kid that was Russian, then therefore there was some kind of Russian collusion, because that's the extreme that they're actually going to go with the situation. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with it. Manafort was let go from the administration and from the campaign. Kellyanne Conway took that position. The wire transfers, from what I've seen here, happened in 2012 and 13. What goes along with that afterwards, I'm very curious to see what's actually going to happen. 721-825-5721 Talk. When we come back in hour number 3, Walt Chappell, with the candidate for the Wichita School Board, is going to be on with us. I have tomorrow we have 2 more candidates. I want to say Friday we have another one, possibly on Thursday as well. We have a good 5 or 6 candidates that are going to be joining us. It's going to be the same questions to every single school board candidate. We have the Wichita City Council, by the way, with Brandon Johnson and Mike Kennard. They're both going to be joining us on Wednesday. This week, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the week chock full of candidates for these special elections. You're not going to want to miss it. There's a lot of information to get out, and we need to see exactly where they stand on the issues. It is not partisan. They cannot set as a Republican or a Democrat, so you don't have that general feel of what they're going to do. But we'll find out right here on The Voice of Reason, which is what we'll do next. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
School funding did not go down. A flat-out, absolute lie. Across the board, in every district as an average, the state funding went up 1 to 2% every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, even after the tax cuts, even after the budgetary issues. The budget continued to climb every single year, and education spending grew by 2% every single year Brownback has been in office.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3. The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It is a Monday. Let's enjoy it as much, shall we? Let's do it. We got to get pumped up. We got to get ready, set the tone for the week. We got to get excited for the pre-holiday that is Halloween coming up here. It's The Voice of Reason. It's a Monday. Let's get it started here.
Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
721-8255-721 Talk. If you want to join into the program, you're more than welcome to do so. Shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook live feed is up and rolling as well. We appreciate you checking that out. Like it, share it. Let's spread the message, baby. There is, if you've lived under a rock and if you haven't heard, there's a special election coming up next week on Tuesday, and this is the place that you're going to get the information, the talk. You're going to understand where the candidates stand on the issues. Now, let me reiterate as well that when we have a guest on running for election, running for a campaign, talking about their platform, whether I agree or disagree, I just get the word out, and it's up to you as the listener to decide on where you stand and where you fall on the issues. And it's especially important with this one because they don't run as Republican, Democrat for the city council or for the school board. So you really need to listen and to understand where their platform is. We had Julie Hedrick on as of Thursday last week, and we got a lot of response from that. And a lot of listeners did not like your platform, and that's your prerogative. That's for you to hear and for you to understand where they stand on. So we're going to do this with as many of the candidates as we possibly can for you to know exactly where they stand on the issues and for you to be able to go into the voting booth and feel confident with your vote, good, bad, or indifferent, wherever they may stand. And our next candidate on here, I'm really excited to have on, Walt Chappell, candidate for Wichita School Board. Good morning, sir. Welcome in.
Hey, good morning, Andy.
Great to have you back on here. It's been a little bit since we have chatted, and looking forward to it. So you running for what district?
District 6.
6, that's right, District 6 on here. And it's been an interesting race so far with all the candidates in all the districts. I know that there was a little drama and a little issue that happened last week in the newspaper. We can briefly talk about that a little bit. But talk about, first off, I know you've been involved in the school system to some degree for a long time. You've been an advocate for the schools and the budget issues and the efficiency issues for a long time. Talk a little bit for listeners who may not know about your background that's led you up to this point.
Well, I've got over 40 years experience actually in education. I have my PhD from Michigan State in that area of curriculum and instruction. But I've helped work both at the K-12 and at the secondary level. It's been a real treat to work with students at all grade levels and kind of see their eyes light up and get excited about learning.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about the learning of the kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's about the learning of the kids, and that's the exciting. Just like Halloween, to where Halloween's about the kids, not about the racist costumes that we may see fit there. Okay. But that's another discussion. One thing that's come up, and let's jump into the budget here. I've been reading some stats, and you corrected me on a couple because you're right. Cash reserves. Operational cash reserves at a record high right now, $2 billion. The Wichita School District over $100 million, more so than many of these districts have ever had while we're still talking about education funding. The question I have, are we spending on education efficiently at the state level and then breaking down into the districts?
Well, the simple answer is no. We've got a lot of places where we could use the funds more effectively and make sure the kids learn job skills, but we're using funds for all kinds of fads. I had a person on my Facebook page just yesterday ask me, well, what about consumable math books? Well, that's a good way for the various publishers to go ahead and get you to buy another book every year, as opposed to using that book, for a cycle of generally 7 to 10 years. Like a math book doesn't change. Math's still the same.
Well, unless you look at Common Core, then that changes every time you look at the same answer or look at the same problem there. But it almost reminds me of like a college class to where every single year there's a new edition because they change a line out of it, and then you have to buy the brand new book, and you can't use the old one. You can't even sell it back at the same time. You buy it for $500, you sell it back for $10, and then you feel, oh, hey, I did something productive.
But these books have got it set up so you tear out the pages. Mm-hmm. That's called consumable textbook.
Sure.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that one is.
Well, you tear up the book, and then you got to buy a new one. And it's great for Pearson and McGraw-Hill. They love it because they're making billions of dollars off of Common Core. Mm-hmm. But it has nothing to do with teaching kids.
Does that fall into the realm of when we talk about the graduation rates or test scores? What's your idea? What do you want to take? What do you want to implement here in the Wichita School District in order to try and raise that? We see the stats of inner cities or minority students to some degree where they struggle a little bit. We're not seeing the test scores that we necessarily need to. We've advocated for either competition or we've advocated for better tenure or getting rid of tenure for teachers. What's your idea? What do you want to take away in order to try and raise graduation and test scores up in the Wichita School District?
Well, we have to have relevant curriculum for one. I taught science, and I made sure that I tried to make it very interesting, something that kids could relate to. And when they did, they saw, here's a teacher that's really trying his best to make sure they learn something that they can apply. Too often we've got very esoteric stuff going on in the classes. It's boring, and many of the kids don't see any relevance to it. So they just, shut off their brain, let alone, leave the school. By age 16, you can get out of here. I mean, It's not any secret that that's the age where kids can decide, hey, I'm not in here anymore. I'm just going to leave. But they often leave before that. In middle school, we have a large number of kids just get bored stiff.
Mm-hmm. How do we do that for the teachers? Is it something that we encourage the teachers to be creative in that sense? Do we let them kind of have the free reign to tailor their class the way they need to? I mean, what's your idea on actually making, because you're right, I agree. When the kids are actually entertained, they actually enjoy it more. The best classes I had were the teachers that I thought were extremely entertaining in a topic that I thought was very fascinating because they were able to relate it, and I soaked it up. And that happened to be, by the way, debate and history and social studies, which is why I do what I do here. I mean, how do we make that happen? How do we allow that creativity to happen in the classroom?
Well, first thing we got to do is get rid of Common Core. It's making our teachers, go nuts, trying to read a script, follow a standard. They've got to be on a particular standard on a given week, and if they're not, then the principal can say, "Oh, you're not doing a good job." Oh, that's crazy. And many times the kids are seeing through it. The math is just totally confusing for parents, teachers, and the students. So if we get back to teaching the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, the things that we all know work, we have a chance to let those kids go ahead and get excited about robotics, or excited about computer coding, or excited about fixing their car, auto mechanics. There are a lot of things that will get a kid interested. And when they're interested in a topic, they'll read all kinds of stuff about that. We don't have to force them into, a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very true. The curriculum, as you mentioned, the books a little bit, and just the resources that teachers have, the curriculum that we're trying to teach, whether it's Common Core, whether it's up to, the question is, I guess, to you, who do you think should set the curriculum? Should it be the Department of Education? Do you think it should be the school board behind closed doors? Do you think it should be a transparent conversation between the school board and the teachers and the parents? Who do you think needs to set the curriculum to say, this is what I want my children to be learning in our classrooms?
Well, here's the key for all of the state of Kansas. I've worked with our new commissioner a lot in the last 10 years. Randy Watson in the State Board of Education is moving towards an individual plan of study. And what that'll allow is an 8th grader and his parents or her parents to come in and say, okay, these are the interests that this child has. Let's develop a curriculum around that child's interests. And that really turns the kid on, but it presides a very important challenge for the school district. Now we've got to go ahead and design the courses to teach those variety of skills. And that's going to be a real turning point. At the state board level, they've given the districts the flexibility. Now it's up to people like myself. When I'm elected to the board, I'm going to work with parents and teachers. Make sure we design the courses that allow those kids to learn those job skills so when they graduate, they can go out and get a good paying job.
I've never heard of that before as a high school, especially having kind of a tailored class schedule to you, because, even my school, you just took all the classes, you took all the basics, and then you started doing that. So it's almost like an individual mandate, kind of like a college class, to where depending on your ideas and what fascinates you and interests you, you kind of tailor your schedule to that. That's kind of cool, kind of a good idea.
Well, it is a great idea, and it's going to take a tremendous amount of effort. We're going to have input from teachers for sure. They're the ones that are going to have to deliver the course at the school building level. But the parents have their input. I'm already out listening to parents and teachers and business leaders of this city. We're having a good dialogue already to make sure we come up with the job skills that our employers need in the next 5-10 years. We're short over 4,000 machinists alone at Spirit. Mm-hmm. People are retiring, and we have no one to fill those jobs.
Talk about the importance to you of leadership, whether it's the leadership of the school board to try and set a certain direction of where the school needs to go, the leadership of the parents maybe taking charge and saying, this is what we want to see from the school district, from the teachers saying, this is the resources that I actually need in the classroom. How important is the aspect, and especially for your position as a potential school board member, the idea of leadership and actually directing the discussion in some way, shape, or form?
Well, you need people at that board table who've really been through the process of teaching kids and thinking this through. And that's one of the things I bring to this candidacy. I have that experience. I know what it takes to put courses together, both at the K-12 as well as the university level. I was the coordinator of medical instructional services at the University of Iowa. So I had 22 different departments to work with, basic science and clinical science. And we're trying to produce an MD. Now, here we are. In K-12, we're trying to produce a kid who can go out and survive on their own, be productive as a citizen. To do that, they have to have the basic skills of reading and writing, all that good stuff, but they also have to have the job skills. And so, yes, that's going to take leadership from the board. We're going to have to insist on having teacher input and parent input, and not just the bureaucrats. It's not just for the central administration or bureaucrats in the State Department of Education to tell us how we're going to teach kids or what we're going to teach. That's the parents' decision, and it's the local school board decision.
To feed off of that and take it to the next level here, the story I'm sure you followed to some degree last week was the debate, the internal debacle and drama, a little bit about the school board making decisions behind closed doors and then coming in front of the public and being in very unison because we can't have any differences. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. You can comment on that if you'd like or not. But talk about the importance, or if you don't see it, of transparency of the school board on having a dialogue between ideas, between differences between school board members, or the differences between parents may have with the school board, and having that dialogue in order to further the agenda of the school district in one way or another.
Well, there's a lot of slippage between the cup and the lip. That's an old expression. I don't know how many people remember that one. But you've got people now that are just hiding information. I look at the bureaucrats. I've asked specific questions as a candidate, and I'm not getting answers. They say, well, you can file a CORA request and pay us $25 an hour, and we'll charge you 25 cents a sheet for anything we give you. Well, that's no way to behave. In the same way for the school board, they're trying to tell the board members, you can ask a question, but we may or may not tell you. Now, that is the kind of stonewalling that's going to stop. I'm not going to put up with that. I'm very interested in making sure we get factual answers so we can make good decisions. Mm-hmm. And we can't do that if they're hiding the data. Now, the other part is that these decisions need to be made at the board table. They can't be done behind closed doors. And that's another thing I'll insist on.
Sure. We got just about a minute or so left here, but Walt Chappell, candidate for Wichita School Board District number 6. Now, as a reminder, everybody votes, regardless of where you're at in the city, votes for everybody in every district. But where's District 6 at, by the way? Where's that line
Northwest part of the city.
Okay, northwest part of the city there. We got a week away from the election. Last comments to you as the Get Out the Vote push, your platform, what you want to do, and just to try and encourage people. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to make sure kids, again, end up with job skills when they graduate. I helped draft the legislation that was passed in Senate Bill 155. That was done in 2010, and I worked very hard to make sure that bill got passed through the legislature. But then what you end up with now is thousands and thousands of kids in Kansas as juniors and seniors in high school have been able to get their tuition paid. They go to WATC or Butler County Community College, they get the college credits, and they end up with industrially recognized certificates. That means they've got a ticket to ride as soon as they get out of high school. And those are good paying jobs, those are good paying careers, and I'm very excited about that. That's the kind of leadership I'll bring to this board.
Very good. Walt Chappell, good luck to you, my friend. A week away from the election. It's going to be an exciting one. And if you do get on the board, we'd love to be able to reach out and get updates from the school board here on the show on a semi-frequent basis, talk about what's going on.
Oh, you can count on it.
It'd be a great time. Walt, good luck to you, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
21 minutes past the hour. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason here on KQAM. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, KQAM. Thanks again to Walt Chappell, candidate for District number 6 of the Wichita School Board. Appreciate him swinging in. We got more coming up throughout this week. You're not going to want to miss it. It's extremely important. It's a special election. It's school board and city council, which means it's predominantly not going to have as many people show up, which is sad. It's very sad. But you know what? As a base, we talk about grassroots activism. We talk about wanting to change things. We talk about President Trump on the federal level. We talk about the state levels. When we want to change things, this is how we do it. And if the conservative base shows up to vote for city council and school board, just imagine the opportunities that we have here. The rest of the country will be looking at us on what's going on and what we're doing. And we're really excited about that. 721-825-5721 Talk. This portion of The Voice of Reason, by the way, brought to you by Lewis Street Glass on South Market here in Wichita. If it's anything glass, it's got to be Lewis Street Glass. Automotive, residential, and commercial. Maybe you got a crack in your windshield. It's getting cold outside, which, by the way, it's kind of overcast and dreary out this morning. It looks perfect for Halloween. Is it not? It's like the perfect Halloween day right now. It's awesome. Residential, maybe you need to work on your windows in your home, maybe some shower glass doors, mirrors and shelves, patio doors, display cases. They can fix that and help with you on that as well. Commercial, you got the storefront door that's all glass. You got the big window there in your shop. They can work on those. They do have after-hour emergency service as well. They are the oldest glass store in the entire state of Kansas, and they are for a reason. Give them a call, 316-263-8259. 316-263-8259, or visit them, lewisstreetglass.com, or at their location, 743 South Market, right here in Wichita. Proud sponsors of The Voice of Reason, and we very much appreciate that. Bottom of the hour news coming up. When we come back, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. We may reiterate some of the numbers there for education. If you do want to get into a debate with somebody, which is really, really fun, by the way, then you can throw the numbers in their face and see how they respond. Because, again, progressives, they're really good at the 160-character tweet. Brown Bay hates puppy dogs and children. We don't have no money coming into the schools. Okay. Let's see what they say when you actually give them the numbers, and they usually just kind of disappear. We'll talk about that. Plus, it's Halloween. We got to do the Halloween theme for tomorrow. It's the pre-Halloween celebration. Let's celebrate it here on The Voice of Reason. Back after this. Stay here.
Well, I saw the thing coming out of the sky.
Keeping political talk trendy.
Oh my God, yes, more.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Purple people leader to me. It was a one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people leader. A one-eyed, one-horn, flying purple people leader sure looks strange.
Hey, they're talking about a Democrat. Welcome back in. Wrapping up the show today, right here on The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along on a Monday on a Halloween Eve. Appreciate it. 721-8255, 721-TALK. We got to enjoy it a little bit, right? Although there are some people that just don't enjoy it. Here is the Halloween costume tips of the day.
It's Halloween in the current year, and that can only mean one thing. People who wear offensive costumes are literally Hitler. This Halloween, don't be Hitler. Have a trigger-free trick-or-treat by pledging to make Halloween a safe space again. Whoa! Hands up! Don't shoot! You, officer, have the right to remain offensive. Just kidding. That's not in our Constitution. Now, you might look in the mirror and see a sexy police officer. However, unsuspecting trick-or-treaters see a white, cisgender bigot who is enforcing a patriarchal system of oppression and systemic racism. Make Halloween a safe space this year by drawing attention to solidarity, not division. Like this look, which can only be described as oink, oink, bang, bangin'. And when you're out in your BLM costume, get into character. Find a Halloween party and shut it down. But an important disclaimer to this BLM getup: do not wear blackface. That's racist. Instead, take a cue from Rachel Dolezal or Sean King. Simple bronzer will do. Wingapo, more like Wingap, no. You might think you look like a Disney princess with a tomahawk, but you're actually culturally appropriating the life of Madawaska and applying outdated stereotypes of a pan-Indian culture. You might think natives are mythical creatures that are sort of magical, but they're not. Being Indian is a culture. It's not a costume. Moreover, the sexualization of women from foreign cultures is never okay. It's oppressive. It's rape culture. So, at a minimum, if you're going to appropriate another culture, don't make it sexy. Instead, slide on that blazer and dress up as Elizabeth Warren this Halloween. And no need to carry props, like heritage papers. Just point to your high cheekbones and your costume will be complete. Despite what you might think, your convict outfit is not fashionable. It's fascist. Incarceration rates disproportionately affect men of color, and that's racist. Jail is racist. This convict costume fetishizes a victim of fascist, conservative, tough-on-crime legislation. This Halloween, delete racism by going as the presidential candidate who relieved the DOJ and the FBI of their prejudiced legal standards. Helpful props for your Hillary Clinton costume can include, but are not limited to, diazepam injections, anti-seizure sunglasses, and pictures of the Saudi prince. Just put them in your back pocket. But be sure to leave those subpoenaed emails at home, where they belong. Is it just me, or has Osama been misunderstood? You might think your terrorist costume is a parody on today's political affairs, but you're wrong. It's toxic, it's Islamophobic, it's blasphemy. And if someone uploads clips of your costume to YouTube, you could trigger a real terrorist attack. This Halloween, Taliban Islamophobia by striking tolerance into the necks of unbelievers. Oh, this Halloween, say not all Muslims by dressing up as a migrant. Whether you fancy yourself from Iran, Sudan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, really any country ending in "an", just tell folks you're from Syria, where you left your wife and kids. And if you get up to any mischief this Halloween, remind the authorities that it's not a crime if you're a refugee.
Well, we hope you found our video helpful.
Please share to help spread the word.
Spread the word. Halloween isn't about going out or having fun. It's about starting a dialogue, to take a more proactive approach to potentially offensive outfits by developing strategies and even explicit policies to prevent people from donning controversial costumes.
Halloween isn't just about candy. It's about cultural enrichment.
There it is, your Halloween tips of the day, brought to you by the Voice of Reason here. There you go. Now you know that if you dress up really as anything, then you are racist or culturally appropriating somebody, or you're just being bigoted and closed-minded. I don't know where to go from there. What can you dress up as? Here's the question for you. If you dress up, which I hope that individuals, even adults, yes, dress up for Halloween on Halloween Day because it's just fun, and now the fact that everybody gets their safe space violated on Halloween Day makes it really one of my more favorite holidays of the year, because now we get to openly invade someone's personal safe space by doing so, and then just saying, well, I didn't know it was offensive, and we could actually have a little fun with this. So I think everybody needs to be dressing up for Halloween. The question is to you, though, at 721-8255, what can we dress up as that apparently is not offensive? That's what I'd like to know. Now, predominantly kids like to dress up, and if you dress up as a superhero, I'm pretty sure that then you're marginalizing anybody else that may not have a superpower like that superhero. Like if you dress up as Spider-Man, then you can shoot webs out of your hands unlike anybody else. So therefore, you are too special, and you're appropriating spiders, because that just means that they just shoot webs around and crawl on walls. If you are someone like Thor, then you're a white Viking type individual with very large muscles and very large individual, and you're a white supremacist advocating for white supremacy because you're the only one that can hold the hammer, and you're that strong and more strong than any other minority. I'm wondering if that's the argument there. I'm curious to see if you're Wonder Woman, then, Wonder Woman, you're okay because then you're a woman, so therefore you're showing that women have more powers than men to some degree. So I guess that one's okay. I don't know how this works. I'm trying to figure out where the line's being drawn here, because as you know, there's an argument, especially with the princesses. If you dress up like Jasmine, then number one, you may be a little risque. And oh, by the way, you're marginalizing women of Middle Eastern descent. So if you're a white girl, then you can only be dressed up as a white girl princess, like Cinderella or Snow White or Ariel, of that degree. But if you do that, like if you're a blonde girl and you try and dress up as Ariel, then you're offending redheads because you dress up as a redhead. The argument this year, of course, is the big Princess Moana from the from the cartoon Moana, which I think is a great show. I think it's great. We actually just watched that yesterday, and my daughter loves that show. If she wanted to dress up like Moana, she would not be able to, because she's a blonde and a light-skinned, pale-skinned blonde, dressing up as a Polynesian Hawaiian with dark skin and dark hair like Moana. And therefore, it is culturally appropriating them and being bigoted and close-minded because we want to dress up like them. I just don't get it. I don't know. You would think in a real, like, normal world, we wouldn't even care about this stuff. But if you really want to look into it, you would think that they would be happy at the fact that people are acknowledging their culture and their differences, as opposed to the crazy white supremacist white individuals of having a little bit dark skin and dark hair. So you would actually appreciate people wanting to dress up like you, if you want to look down that road. And I'm sure that the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, they actually even don't give a crap about what we dress up as Halloween. And it's probably a white supremacist individual who just is feeling guilty about their white privilege that are actually making these remarks. But the story is a Halloween costume for your kids. Chances are you have a child that is enamored with all things Disney and wants to be all of the princesses. All of them, especially Moana. Last year, Disney came under fire for its Maui costume, the large demigod character from Moana, which depicted the demigod's painted brown skin. The company ultimately pulled the costume in response to the uproar, telling Entertainment Weekly in a statement that, quote, "The team behind Moana has taken great care to respect the cultures of the Pacific Islands that inspired the film, and we regret that the Maui costume has offended some." Are you kidding me? They actually pulled it from the line. It's too offensive. A dark-skinned guy with a bunch of tattoos. We can't be having something like that on the line. That's just offensive to them because they have tattoos and dark skin color, and we don't want people to be dressed up like them because they're unique and special. The original article, written by Sachi Ferris, discusses how her white daughter was torn between dressing as Elsa from Frozen or the character of Moana. Ferris expresses concern that while an Elsa costume might reinforce notions of white privilege, dressing up as Moana is essentially cultural appropriation, the act of reducing someone's culture to stereotypes and thereby belittling it. Though Ferris puzzles over how one might wear a Moana costume respectfully, she ultimately decides it just isn't a good idea. So, you're not going to win either way. If you have a white daughter who dresses up as Elsa, then you're reinforcing white privilege. I wonder if a gal of minority descent wants to dress up as Elsa as well because they enjoy Frozen, not because of skin color, because that's the parent thing, but the innocent children who don't look at skin color or look at these things, they just want to dress up like the person that they enjoy on the cartoons, which is one of the princesses. Funny how the adults are upset about racism by thinking about racism and trying to teach their kids racism while saying that we shouldn't have racism. It's very a unique situation, isn't it? The kids, the innocent, pure kids are the ones that aren't thinking about this stuff. Hey, Moana's really cool. I want to be like that. Hey, Princess Elsa's really cool. I want to be like that. Hey, Cinderella's really cool. I want to be like that. Not looking at anything else. But it's the adults who want to end racism, teach their kids about racism, so not to dress up like somebody because that's racism. So they teach them, they put it in their heads about racism. So you can never win because if you're a white girl and you dress up like Elsa, then you are reinforcing white privilege. If you're a white girl and you dress up as Moana, then you're culturally appropriating somebody and belittling and stereotyping a certain culture. If you're a girl of minority descent and you try and dress up like Elsa, I wonder what they would say about that. That you're encouraging white privilege because the princess is white and therefore you want to be like the white person, so therefore you want to culturally appropriate whites? Should we ban that? Should we stop saying that any minority girl should like not dress up as a white princess? Cinderella, Elsa, Ariel. Because, hey, you know what? You're not allowed to be like that. You're not that skin color, so therefore you shouldn't do that because you're culturally appropriating me. Is that the way we should go here? I'm very confused as of how this is all supposed to play out. At this point, the writer continues, you might be saying something like, but I dressed up as Jasmine as a child and I'm not racist, or it's just a Halloween costume, just chill out. And you can and should strive to be better than you were 10, 20, 30 years ago. If you missed the mark when you were younger, maybe think about using this Halloween as an opportunity to teach your kids about the importance of cultural sensitivity. If your child's dream costume feels questionable, don't just throw your hands up and hand over your credit card. You're the parent here, and your child wears what your child wears falls on you. If your child wears a racist costume, you're kind of wearing it too. Recognize this. Moana is a really special character to young girls of Polynesian descent who has never seen a Disney princess who looks like them, just like how Tiana in The Princess and the Frog really resonates with young black women who have waited decades to see themselves represented. White girls have plenty of princesses to choose from. Belle, Ariel, Snow White, the Sleeping Beauty. If your Caucasian son or daughter doesn't get to be exactly what they want for Halloween, encourage them to take the step back and realize that they're awash of privileges and that real Moanas and Tianas the world will likely never see because the world is full of racist jerks like you. There it is. Welcome into... Oh, by the way, you can't even dress up as a zombie or a vampire this year either. Did you know that's culturally appropriating vampires and zombies? There was a protest apparently up in Portland, Oregon, to where we are undead brain eaters, not a costume. as zombies and vampires. End cultural appropriation, fight bigotry. We need to have a national discussion about the unfair representation of fantastical creatures like zombies, vampires, and werewolves, someone told CNN. What may have seemed like a harmless fun for decades past is really a tradition that's stifling and distorting the beauty cultures of creatures of the night like zombies and vampires. So you can't even do that anymore. I don't know what you can dress up as other than a sign that says, I'm sorry about the privileges that I have. And therefore, but then if you do it as a costume, though, then you're mocking it. So therefore, it's disrespectful to the movement, right? My brain hurts. I'm confused. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, morning, Andy. Sean here.
Sean, how are you, my friend?
Oh, trying to stay warm.
There you go. Are you wearing a Halloween costume this year?
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Yeah, what are you going to dress up as?
I thought I was going to dress up as you. I seen a picture of you on TV.
You're going to dress up as me. Oh, okay. Well, that might scare some people around, so that might be a good thing. That might scare them away a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering what that was on the top of your head, but I guess that's hair.
A little bit. It's sparse, but it's there. I'm hoping it's at least there. I mean, heck, I'm only 30. Come on, I don't want it to go away yet. No, I was hoping that some individuals might dress up like Colin Kaepernick, so that way we can kneel everywhere we go and then say that the world's against us. I mean, that might be a good costume, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Really would.
Or maybe Floyd Mayweather, and then we can run whenever someone tries to come at us. We can just run away. See?
Hey, who's doing all of this, going around saying that everything is racist? I think it's white liberals that are doing that crap.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is, because they're the apologists. They're the ones that feel that we need to apologize for everything, and the non-racist white liberals are the ones that need to bring up race in everything that we do.
Well, you know what Grandpa'd say, they need a good beating.
We got to set them straight a little bit.
I'm really getting tired of it, man. You know, I don't see myself as anything but just a man and an American. Now, I have to be white, but that's just the way I turned out. That's the way God created me. You know, I ain't racist, but just because I'm white don't make me a racist. Now, I can become a racist. You know,
exactly. I mean, and again, that's the thing. The children grow up pure and innocent, not even thinking about race or skin color, because obviously they want to be Moana, they want to be this person, they want to be that person that may be different from what they are. But it's the adults that are actually against racism, are the ones teaching their kids that's racist and bringing race into the discussion. So therefore, wouldn't that by default make them racist? But of course, they're the fighters, the true fighters of cultural diversity.
Yeah. Well. You know, it's crazy, but one of these days, hopefully, it'll change. In the meantime, I came up with I'll tell you about that. I think I already mentioned that to you. I have to tell you about that some other time. But I am working on a super highly classified, above top secret project with Apple computers for the Department of Defense and the CIA.
Well, there you go.
Have to tell you about sometime. It's the new iPhone T2000 Assassinator.
See, I like that. We'll definitely have to get the lowdown scoop on that one here pretty soon, because that is going to be some top secret information. Hopefully, we won't all have to be killed in order to hear that. Sean, I love it. I appreciate it. You got to give us the lowdown on that in the next couple of days here, and let us know what's going on. Although I do have to say, though, by the way, going back to the costumes, that if you do decide to dress up as maybe like Moana, then maybe they would give you a free pass, because not only are you culturally appropriating for the skin color, but then you might actually want to identify as a female, a high school female. So therefore, maybe they might let that one slide through. Although, of course, for Halloween, it may be mocking, since it's actually a costume and not your everyday thing and your actual wannabe transition. So maybe you're just mocking them. That'd still be offensive. I haven't quite worked out the PC line on where things are okay and where things are not okay yet. We may have to get someone on as a expert to be able to break that down for us. 7 minutes to the top of the hour. 721-8255-721-TALK. Wrapping up the show today. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
By the way, just a reminder for you, big news that actually came out this morning Stay tuned in to KQAM at 8 o'clock tonight. I'll be guest hosting Armed American Radio for the great Mark Walters. Looking forward to doing so tonight. So stay tuned in for that right here on KQAM. Let's go to the phones here, wrapping up the show today, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Andy. This is Elvis.
Hey, there we go. How are you, my friend?
You know what they say is imitation is the highest form of flattery. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful thing right there. See, now, I don't know. That might be culturally inappropriate for, I don't know, singers. I mean, you got a culture there, right? So, hey, that you're a little insensitive there, Ellis. I don't know. That might be just a little offensive to some singers and yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with that. But welcome. I appreciate that. 721-825-572 and talk tomorrow. We have 2 more school board members coming on to the show. It's going to be a fun time for Halloween. It is Halloween. Hopefully, everybody will be able to dress up a little bit. Come on, have a little fun with it. Show up to work in your costume. Be the oddball. Be the odd duck. I am. It's always a great time. Everybody gets to point and laugh and chuckle and have a great time. But you know what? You lighten the mood, and you get to be politically insensitive at times, which just makes things all the more fun as well. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Have a great day, everybody.